your favorite memories of your siblings?
I already talked about my brothers coming to live with us. So I was the oldest child, and the brothers came, boy, maybe, I don't know, maybe we were 7, I was 7 maybe when they came, 7 years old. And that my stepfather had, I think, 7 kids. And they were all in various areas of, one was in juvie, 2 of them were, I don't know, with a different family. So it was a scattered type of thing. And the 2 brothers, they were 2 years apart, and they were 10 years older than I was, 10 or 12 years older than I was, the one brother. And then the other brother was 2 years younger than that. So there was a messed up deal. But my stepfather, surprisingly, was a very principled person. He got a job down at the Rochester Pole Yard, which was a very coveted job. It was a high-paying job, and it was he was a very good worker, so he had a good reputation. But they always drank every weekend. They'd go to Olympia to go shopping. And then Janice and I would maybe go once a month with them. And usually we got to have lunch or at least get an ice cream or something like that. So that was a big deal. And in those days, you went to the drugstore to get food, or get medicine, or see whether or not you needed to go to a doctor. And the drugstores did that regularly. So
the pharmacist told you what was wrong with you.
Yes, the pharmacist would say, no, this time you need to go to the clinic. And downtown at the time there was a clinic. Boy, the name just flitted right through my head, but it was a well-known clinic, and people came there just drop-ins. They had a lot of drop-ins. Oh, thank you, dear. Where was I?
Your trip going to town with your parents.
We love to go to town, and one of my favorite memories was one time there was a drugstore, or like a 5 and dime kind of a store, which was so fun to go to. They had all kinds of stuff. That was really a treat to get in there. And one time my mom let us buy turtles. In those days, that was, they had huge terrariums, almost filled with turtles, and they sold them it wasn't that much, and we begged my mom to let us we each got a turtle, and that was, oh man, that was like hog heaven. And we took really good care of them. I think one of them made it, and of course then nobody knew which one died, so I made sure it wasn't mine. My poor sister. I could bribe her out of most everything or anything. She was, but I took good care of her too, so it wasn't, I earned the right to talk her into by being nice to her and actually taking care of her. I was her full-time homemade or full-time caretaker for years and years, especially when my grandfather died and my grandmother was ill and she had to be taken care of. So I took care of my younger sister. So I guess that's about what I can think of right now.
Okay, the question was, what are your favorite memories of your siblings? And
My sister.
in our families, there was Don, Dale, and Dean for boys, and so nobody in town knew which one was which.
Right.
And so we got, the barber just says, hi, Don, Dale, and Dean. And so he got us, one way or the other. And then Tina was the only girl in the family, which was basically like having another boy, because Tina liked to climb trees, and so we climbed trees a lot. And so at that time, there were alongside the road lots of big fir trees,
Right.
and you could get up to the first limb, and then you had limbs this big around, and you could just go forever. And we were up, probably 70 feet or so in this fir tree, and I was standing on a limb, and it broke, and I fell and landed right on top of her, on her limb. And so that did kind of injure her back, and I think that's probably why she's got back problems and had surgeries. But it happened when I fell, the limb broke, and I landed on top of her in the top of a fir tree. Don and I worked really well together in the field. He's an efficiency expert, became an engineer, and so we worked well together. Hauling hay, most of the time it was hauling hay in the summertime. We did all the work. If we got things stacked up where all the hay came at one time, or all the straw came at one time, we had a hired man that came with his tractor too. But we had two tractors and hauled hay, and we worked well together, and we've always been, just good friends. When I got a driver's license before he did, and then he went to college, and then he just got his driver's license before he went to college. So we'd had a lot of money in Dad's bank as far as labor, and so at that time, the Evergreen breeders that came to breed our milk cows drove a Volkswagen. Dad was fascinated with Volkswagens, and so he says, I think we're going to go in and buy a new Volkswagen for you guys. And so he took all the money that we had earned on the farm, and he covered the rest, and we bought in 1960 a brand new Volkswagen Bug. And so I remember that it cost $1 a pound. It weighed 1,600 pounds, and it cost $1,600.
Wow.
And so Don had that to drive back and forth to college, and most of the time for weekends we went together, and we went wherever we felt like going. And sometimes we had a range of 300 miles, and sometimes we had to come home for gas because we had a gas pump in the yard. We had farm gas, and so we could always get gas at home free. Mm-hmm. So there was many times where around midnight we come in and fill up and go again. So we spent a lot of time together, and had, we are a lot different, but still we made room for each other and still really the best of friends. Probably the best sibling friend I had was Dean. Now, Dean was 8 years younger than me. So Mom was pretty sick at that time, and so I ended up being responsible for him because I was always outside and doing things. Don was always reading. He would come home from school and read, and then he was just always reading. So I had Dean, and I also had my Model A at that time, and we did a lot of really daring things during that period of time, because I had another seat in there, and so he would go on rides with me, and all our roads were gravel roads. And so you've got this Model A with no weight to it all, just the frame. And we did put a board on the floor, and we had two seats in there and nothing else. No fenders, nothing. And so in rainy weather, it was kind of like a big rainstorm beside us as we were riding down the road. But we did a lot of things on the gravel roads. You just see how fast you can go around the corners without spinning out. More than once we'd spin out. And so you'd spin out, and what you'd always end up doing is the nose would go into the ditch, because I only had front wheel brakes. And so they'd go into the ditch. And so then I'd have Dean, who was 8 years old or so. Okay, Dean, hang on to the steering wheel, push in on the clutch, push on the gas a little bit, and when I push, let out the clutch. So he would. Then he'd let out the clutch, and then he'd go all the way across into the ditch on the other side. And so, okay, Dean, now we're going forward, but just push in the clutch when you get in the middle of the road. And so that was how he learned how to drive. And then the funniest thing was in the springtime, when the sloughs would go down, they would warm up and they'd grow moss and slime on the top, and that moss and slime would be on the ground. So then a lot of those were old hay fields, and so there'd be a nice shallow pond. That would be probably twice the size of a football field, and really slick. It's just like being on ice. So we'd go out there and cut donuts and do all the zigzags and whatnot. And so I would tell Dean, look over and see over here on this side. You see something out there? And about that time, I'd take off and just sling mud at his head. That's looking over.
No, that's awful.
And he'd fall for that so many times, going forward and going backwards, and then mud flying all over. It was just great
terrible.
times. But and we did a lot of things. Then he got into, even later on, riding motorcycles, and so we rode bikes together and different things. But we always had fun with my brothers and sisters. Only had one fight with my brother. I was practicing my trombone sitting on the back porch of our house, and his bedroom was right above. And he thought it'd be really cool to drop a water balloon on me. So he dropped a water balloon on me while I was playing my trombone. So I dropped my trombone, ran around up the stairs, and I hit him once. And that was it. So I felt, that's it. He says, you could really, he did hurt me one time though. We used to get orange juice in high C cans. And the high C cans, you had this little can opener that opened it and punched a hole, a triangular shaped hole. And so I was watering tomato plants, and I had my thumb in the hole, and I was carrying it, going to the garden full of water, and he kicked it. And so that it made me mad. I didn't do anything, but I milked that. I said, oh my God, you could have tore my thumb off. I had cut all the way around, blood running out. I would be without a thumb and everything. I just really milked it, made him feel bad. Probably the only time it ever worked. So,
was this Don or Dean?
That was Don, my older brother. Yeah. So,
Dean wouldn't have done anything
anyway,
like that.
we
Dean
had
was
a
nice
good time
boy.
together as kids.